Hi, everyone. We're just going to give the folks a minute or so to come on in the webinar here. Thank you for joining us today. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So hello, everyone, and welcome to Technology Tuesdays. My name is Lydia Nimke, and I'm the adult librarian at the Tippecanoe branch, and I'm very excited to bring you today's presentation on Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. You all are muted and have your cameras turned off by default, but please don't let that stop you from engaging with us in the Q&A box down below. With us today in the background, we have the adult librarian from the East Branch, Beth Gabriel.
Hi everyone, I'm hanging out here to answer your questions while Lydia is chatting with you about Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. You can feel free to put your questions directly to Lydia in the Q&A and I will read them out loud as we go along. Have a good talk.
Thanks, Beth. So let's get into some of the main concepts we'll be covering today. First of all, we're going to talk about what Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are. The gist of it, I'll give you right now, is that they are phone and car integration technologies that were created to help you do more with your phone safely while you're driving. Then we'll move on to talking a little bit about how you connect your phone to the car and how you kind of communicate with your phone and people while you're driving. We have some short demonstration videos, and then we'll move on to talking about some of the applications that are compatible with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Today's presentation is a little bit on the shorter end, so feel free to put in like whatever questions you may have. I'm more than happy to, do some research and try and figure them out for you. All right. First up is Android Auto. Android Auto really simply lets you connect your phone to your car's display and use your compatible Android apps. You can get driving directions, talk on the phone, send a text message, and listen to music. On the flip side of that, we have Apple CarPlay. And Apple CarPlay is just the iPhone equivalent of Android Auto. It's essentially the same thing. It just lets you connect your iPhone to your car. Again, you can get directions, make calls, send and receive messages, and enjoy your favorite music. Now, beginning with select 2021 car models, you can actually even unlock and start your car with your iPhone, and you can share your key with friends and family members. So that's a new cool feature I learned about in updating this presentation, and I thought that was really nice and had to share as a person who used to lose their keys quite frequently. So let's talk a little bit about that first time setup. This is stuff you won't have to do every time. It's a really simple solution after the first time you use it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is check your car. You want to make sure that your car or the stereo, if you have an aftermarket stereo, is compatible with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. You'll generally be able to find this out by checking the car's owner's manual, or even just looking at the center console under the infotainment system to see if you had the necessary ports to connect to your phone. And then you're going to want to check your phone, right? If you have Android 9 or below for your phone's operating system, you'll need to download the Android Auto app. If you have Android 10 or later, you don't need to download the app because Android Auto is already built in to your phone's operating system. Don't worry right now if you don't know which operating system you have on your Android phone, because Android makes it really, really easy to do that sort of setup on the fly. And then for your iPhone users, you just want to make sure you have the appropriate cable to connect your phone, which needs to be an iPhone 5 or later, to your car. So make sure you have that lightning cable to connect your phone to your car. And then from there, you're going to put the lightning cable into your phone and the USB side into your car. And then you'll generally see an Android Auto or Apple CarPlay icon on your display screen, your dashboard display. And you should be off to the races. Generally, as far as connecting, the cord you use to charge your phone will work just the same in your car. You just remove it from the power adapter and you're able to use that for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. But in some cases, you'll have to find a specific data transfer cable. And I actually ran into this a lot this morning because I don't regularly use Android Auto. So I had to, find a cord that would work with the Android phone I have and make sure everything was plugged in. But some of these cords are just for charging, just for getting power. They're not actually for transmitting information between two sources. So generally the one that comes with your phone can do everything. So I would start with that one. There are some cars and some phones that can connect wirelessly, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and the specific cords themselves on this slide. So all the power from the smartphone to car integration technology really comes from the connection that you make. Since the last time I've done this presentation, there has been a significant rise in the number of cars that offer wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. It's still not perfect and is generally only available on the latest model car, and it may only be available on a higher trim level, but it has made its way into a wider variety of makes and models than the last time. I think the last time we did this in 2021, I think like BMW, Mercedes, and Lexus were the only cars that had wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. But now on these later models, it's pretty prolific, I would say. So if you have a relatively new car or just a pretty much a new car, there's a chance it has wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, so you don't even have to futz with these cords at all. There is also the ability to connect wirelessly with an aftermarket dongle, which you can find for sale on Amazon or other technology sellers like Best Buy, Micro Center, places like that. Now, since I know that many of us don't have the latest model car or one of these luxury vehicles, I'm just going to assume that we're all using a car that requires a wired connection. And that will work in every case. If you have Apple CarPlay and you have a phone that can do CarPlay, a wired connection will work just fine. So again, you're going to connect this end to your phone and this end to your car's like center console generally, or this end to your phone and this end to your center console. And that is the connection you need to make to be able to do some of the things we're going to talk about today. Once you make that connection, the controls for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are relatively simple. There are three general options for controlling your phone and controlling the applications you have in your car. One is Siri or the Google Assistant. Siri is for Apple CarPlay and the Google Assistant is for Android Auto. And you can use your voice to do a wide variety of things. Generally, you'll press and hold the voice control button on your steering wheel, which looks like a lady talking, or a person talking, rather. And you can make a command just like you would with any smart speaker or Siri or the Google Assistant. You can also use the touchscreen of your display to control Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. And then if you have knobs and controls that control that touchscreen, what you see, maybe it's sliding through songs or advancing through tracks on a CD, and you can see that happen on the screen, you can use those knobs and controls as well. Now, just for a little bit more about communicating through voice, you can do things like initiate navigation, and I have some examples of that for you in the demonstration. So if you say, hold that voice control button and say, give me directions to the Grand Avenue Mall. You don't need an origin point any longer because the navigation will know where you are from your phone being in a specific location. So if you say, take me to Grand Avenue Mall, it'll pretty seamlessly start your navigation to the Grand Avenue Mall. That's a pretty old example, but that's what I thought of first. You could also use the assistants to take phone calls, respond to text messages, or start a playlist or music station. Very helpful for keeping your eyes focused and your hands focused where they need to be. So after saying all that, you all may ask me, Lydia, what is the difference? What's the point here? Honestly, besides Android Auto being for Android phones and Apple CarPlay being for iPhones, there really isn't too much of a difference in navigating through the screens to access your applications or making phone calls or accessing text messages. There are really two sides of the phone to car integration technology coin. There are only a few applications that are exclusive to one or the other, and I'll be sure to point those out when we come to them a little later on today. If you've used one of these services, like for example, you've always had an iPhone and you've used Apple CarPlay, and you decide to switch to an Android phone and want to use Android Auto, I'm 100% confident that you could switch to the other with like little to no learning curve. They are very simplified versions. Both services are essentially mirrors of your phone, and we talked about screen mirroring. Excuse me. We talked about screen mirroring a few weeks ago. They're essentially mirrors of your phone and will show you any compatible apps you have downloaded on your phone on your car's display. Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are both free apps, or not free apps, they're free services, although there may be some associated costs with specific apps on them. For example, I use Apple Music to listen to music, and that costs like $8 a month or something like that. So I can use Apple Music in my car through CarPlay, but it's not costing me anything additionally. Apple Music specifically is costing me. I hope that makes sense. So you all are aware that these services I'm talking about are free, but the applications specifically that you're using through them may come at a cost. Android Auto, of course, has the Google Assistant, whereas Apple CarPlay has Siri for voice activation. It really comes down to the age-old debate of Android versus iPhone. So whatever you're more comfortable with is going to be the best for you to use. Both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto were created by their respective companies as a safer way to use your phone while you drive. However, this is my disclaimer. Distracted driving is distracted driving, whether you're responding to a text on your phone or responding to one with Siri. You should only use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay whenever it's safe to do so. And anything that requires you to take a hand away from the wheel or look away from, your mirrors and your windshield and windows and stuff like that. Anything like that would ideally only be done when the vehicle is stopped or when it's otherwise safe to do so. So, safe driving is important. Disclaimer over. And now we can move into the demonstration. If you have any questions throughout these videos, feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and I will try to address them as we go along here. All right, so the video is starting. And I'm just going to narrate over it as I go. So here I'm just showing you that end of the USB, the micro USB for connecting to Android Auto. And that's the end that goes into the car. And this is the micro USB side that goes into the phone there. So we have to let the app Android Auto have some permissions, access to things like our contacts, our messages, things like that, so it can, send those messages for you and enable phone calls for you. It takes a little bit of time to show up here, and I think that's just because I don't actually use Android Auto on a daily basis. I think it just takes a little bit of time to first initiate type of thing. As you can see right here, it's even prompting you to tap the mic or press and hold the button on the steering wheel for voice activation. And like I said, this tries to walk you through the first use. So it's going to be very simple once you make that connection. You're going to hit the menu button. And that's going to show us all the compatible apps that are already downloaded on that device. Got Maps, Spotify, podcasts, standard phone app, and some others down there. Now I am using the voice activation to get directions to the Tippecanoe Library. The angle changes a little bit. It thinks for a little bit, and then it shows me the directions I have requested and initiates that, that route. So now all I have to do is start driving and follow that blue line until I reach my destination. We can see where I've been recently. We can search through all the categories. We can look at saved places, places that we favorited or starred. And we can always tap in that search box to get a keyboard when we're stopped, to get a keyboard to type in the name of a destination. Because, as good as the Google Assistant and Siri work, they don't always quite understand what we're asking for. So sometimes you might just need to spell it out. And I believe the last thing I show in this video very quickly is where your notifications will be. So once you tap on that bell, if you have notifications for things like new text messages or things in your calendar are coming due, things like that, they'll show up there, but they're not gonna, show up and take over your screen or anything through a banner or like a sort of pop-up thing necessarily. They'll generally be under that bell. And that is it for Android Auto. If you have any questions on Android Auto, you can let us know.
It doesn't look like there's any questions so far in the Q&A. Just a reminder, everyone, you can go ahead and, oh, there comes one. Did you want me to ask it now, Lydia?
Sure.
Okay. Gail would like to know, I assume your car has to have the software that enables CarPlay. Mine is a 2016 BMW and doesn't appear to have a software. I've been told getting the software aftermarket doesn't work well.
I have heard that as well, Gail. That aftermarket Apple CarPlay sort of things are not necessarily going to be the most seamless as the ones that come like stock from the manufacturer. Let me look. I don't, yes. I think your year of BMW might have been the last year that didn't have Apple CarPlay, unfortunately. I'm sorry. But there are still cool ways to use your phone for navigation and stuff like that, with mounts and things of that nature. Great question, though. Any other questions?
Do you go through this process every time you get in the car to use Android Auto?
No, I mean, it can be as complicated or as not complicated as you want it to be, honestly. I will show you what you have to do every time you get in the car to use Android Auto. You don't have to show it to a camera, but you have to take that end and plug it into the car and take the other end and plug it into your phone. That is all the setup that is needed for you to use Android Auto. Just right there. The allowing permissions and things like that, that is just the first time setup type of thing. Thank you for the question.
Then Sue would like to know, any idea why a charging cable will work for a bit and then stop charging the phone?
That sounds like a hardware thing to me. It sounds like the cord might have a short in it, or the port could have a short in it too, but more often than not, charging cords kind of have a lifespan on them. So it might just be reaching the end of its lifespan. Thank you for the question as well. And I will say, Diane, after you plug in your phone to the car, and that's probably what I'm going to refer to it going forward as, after you plug your phone into the car, um, you can start playing music if you would like to, or you can ask the Google Assistant or Siri to play music for you, whatever the case may be. So it can, there can be a lot more steps. So you can search your navigation, or you can just plug in your phone because you want to charge it and keep it moving and be able to answer your phone calls, and that's it. It's totally up to you in that respect. Sweet. Thank you all for the questions. All right, so now we're moving on to Apple CarPlay demonstration. Same deal, USB on one side, we're gonna plug that into the car. And there's a lightning cable on the other side of this one. And we're gonna plug that into the phone. And that is all you have to do to connect your iPhone to CarPlay. Yeah, that is pretty much it. Alrighty. So in this car, I have to touch the star to get into CarPlay. You may or may not have something slightly different. And then from there, we're in the quick menu. And we can see here some of our apps that we already have installed and access to them. So we see our map here. If I was actively using navigation, it would show my route. I also have some quick destinations set up so that wherever I am, it's really easy for me to just push that home icon or push that work icon and get directions to either of those two places. That is the now playing, and that is my calendar, so I can see everything at one glance. Over on the left over here, we have the time, as well as the most recently used apps over here. And then down at the bottom, we have our access to our menu. So I'm going to tap on that. So this is where we can see all of the compatible apps we've got downloaded on this iPhone. Special shout out to Libby. Libby is super great. I use it in the car all the time. If I'm driving anywhere more than like 15 or 20 minutes, I'm probably listening to an audiobook, and I'm probably listening to an audiobook on Libby. So if you don't have Libby yet and you're interested in listening to audiobooks in the car, perhaps, I'd highly recommend downloading it, connecting your Milwaukee Public Library card or whatever library you may be a patron of to it, and seeing what e-audiobooks are available to you. I also have a couple of virtual meeting apps, and those are all nice because although you can't see whatever video or screen is being shared, it's just like calling into a meeting. So you can call into the meeting from your car, and you'll still be able to participate at least through voice. And then on this screen, we still have some of the more standard apps, the phone app, which works pretty similarly to your actual phone as far as contacts, voicemail, even a keypad for dialing numbers, music, messages. It works pretty similar. And that is as well as the calendar over here. And now we slide back into the quick menu, and here I think I am holding the voice control button to bring up that Siri bubble, and I'm saying, give me directions to the Tippecanoe Library. And it automatically shows me that route and takes me into the navigation. I didn't touch a single button on the screen there. It just kind of seamlessly took me into that. And now we're actually in Maps. We can search with a keyboard or can search through these categories, just like in Google Maps. And that is pretty much the gist of things. So as you can see, the interfaces are pretty intuitive and very pared down from what you would expect coming from using the phone to going to using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. It's much simpler than that phone interface because it only does so many things. And there are way less apps and settings to contend with. Now, are there any questions, comments on the two videos?
Let's see. Not on the video, but someone mentioned there might be dust in the connection port for the charging cord problem. So they recommended going to Verizon to clean it out. We just did it this week. So thank you, Barbara. And then Barbara asked, what would you use the Hyundai app for?
I don't use the Hyundai app for anything, me personally. It just came when I got my phone. I think it just has like VIN information. I'm not sure. My husband, whose car I'm in this video, because his car is so much newer and nicer than mine, his Hyundai app does all sorts of things like remote start his car, and I think that's like the Hyundai Blue Link app. In this car and many of the cars that you will connect to, there is almost a default app that's just the make of the car you're in. I haven't really messed around with it too much. I haven't had need to, but that's a good question. And I will press the Hyundai button the next time I'm in the car and see what happens.
All right. And then we have a question to define Bluetooth and wireless play.
Okay, so Bluetooth is a wireless communication technology that allows devices to communicate without wires. So I'm not sure if you're asking about using Bluetooth as opposed to using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but I'll answer it like that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. So when you use Bluetooth to connect your phone to your car, you can play audio, like music, and have conversations through your phone. You can also use your Bluetooth enabled phone and devices to, connect a headphone to your phone, so you can similarly listen to music and have phone calls and things like that. Bluetooth also extends beyond phones and cars and listening devices because you can have a Bluetooth mouse or a Bluetooth keyboard. It's just a means of connecting things that doesn't involve wires. And wireless play, I'm not sure what that is. I can look it up though. I'm a librarian. I will make a note to take a look at that and get back to you. Thank you so much for the question though.
All right, that looks like all we have in the Q&A at the moment.
Awesome sauce.
Oh, here's one more question. Does Apple CarPlay use up data?
It does. And that brings me to my next point. Let's go on to talking about applications. I am going to answer your question as we go through this next slide. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of some of the applications that you might be using while you're in the car. And if you're interested in more, I have whole lists of them that I can send out to you for like all of the compatible apps. So we're mainly going to talk about things in kind of 4 different realms of audio, navigation, news, and productivity. So it is important to note here that anything you stream to your phone will use your data, right? So that includes music, directions, podcasts, audiobooks. Anything you're streaming directly from the internet is using up your data. So you should be careful of your data limits, especially if you do not have unlimited data. One way to use less data is to make sure you download any music or podcasts or audiobooks so that they're actually on your device instead of just streaming them from the internet. And when you do this, a good way to test and to see if you're actually downloaded it to your device or just maybe downloaded it to your online account. There's a lot of kind of funny business that goes along with that, is to put your phone into airplane mode. And if you can still listen to it, still hear it, then it's downloaded to your device and you can listen to it without using internet. So those are some good ways to not use up data when you're stream. I haven't found out a way to not use data for navigation. You may have heard of like offline maps, and those don't necessarily work how you think they would, but that might be something to explore further. Thank you for the question. But yes, so I hope that answers it. You will be using up quite a significant portion of your data, so be careful of it if you have limited data. And further than that, for all of your applications, like I've mentioned previously, because it's a mirror of your phone and any compatible applications, you'll have to have them downloaded onto your phone, you know, and your account signed up for and all that good stuff before you can use them in the car. All right. Cool. So here, just a smattering of music recommendations. I think a lot of people like to listen to music in the car. Apple Music is just on iPhones, and I think it only comes at a subscription. YouTube Music is kind of the Google counterpart for that, the Android counterpart, and it is one of the freemium services listed here, meaning you could use it for free with ads. Spotify is another one that falls into that camp. Amazon Music is a great one because it is free for Amazon Prime members. So if you have an Amazon Prime account, you already have Amazon Music. So that might be one to look into. Pandora is another option, and it's slightly different because you can't necessarily choose exactly which song you want to listen to. You more so choose to listen to artists like Johnny Cash You can't necessarily say you want to listen to Ring of Fire, but you can say you want to listen to songs like Ring of Fire, and you'll potentially hear Ring of Fire on that list. So, a little bit different, but a good way to explore for new music. And then one I really like is iHeartRadio because, if you're a radio, you like listening to radio, you can actually stream the radio station, um, what they're broadcasting through a, internet stream as opposed to listening for the signal. This is really nice if you happen to, live somewhere that's just beyond the reaches of one of your favorite stations, or maybe you're in Denver and you want to listen to Radio Milwaukee. That's a really nice app. And there's tons more. Like I was mentioning to Gordon, you don't have to have an app that's compatible with CarPlay to be able to listen to it through the Bluetooth. You can listen to anything. For example, on this next slide, I talk a lot about audiobooks, but one I don't mention on here because it doesn't have a compatible app is Hoopla. But I still listen to Hoopla all the time in the car. It just doesn't have all the bells and whistles of a fully compatible app. Since we're talking about audiobooks, we'll talk about Audible, of course, which comes at a cost. Libby is absolutely free through your local library. I really like Libby, in case you couldn't tell. And audiobooks.com is also another option for e-audiobooks. And then for podcasts, there is Apple Podcasts, which is exclusive to iPhone, but there's also Overcast and Stitcher, which have really great interfaces and are really great applications as well. And let's see. Then we'll move on to talking about navigating, which is what I'm sure a lot of people will use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto for. So some of the bigger names are Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze. So full disclosure, I have switched over from being a all my driving career Google Maps user. Well, after MapQuest stopped being a thing, I switched over to Google Maps, and I've switched over since to Apple Maps. So I'm kind of trying not to let my bias show. But I have used all three of them at different points, and they're all great for what they do. Apple Maps is really nice for being in the whole, Apple ecosystem, which I think you all know I am deeply entrenched in currently. Google Maps has so much information and usually is really up to date and the most accurate, I find, as far as businesses' hours, their menus, restaurants' menus, traffic and things like that. But all of them have traffic monitoring. Waze is especially good at letting you know when there are speed traps or obstacles in the road, things like that, things of that nature, because they are really leaning into the crowdsourced information. So as you're using Waze, if you see that there is a speed trap waiting to catch someone, you can let Waze know, and then it'll warn all the Waze users behind you, which is pretty nice. So they're all good for different things. You can use whichever one you're the most familiar with, and it'll be pretty similar when you're in the car as well. And then finally, news and productivity. Everything that's listed on the slide tends to come stock on newer phones. So Apple News will usually come on your iPhones. Google News will usually come on your Androids. And then, of course, you'll have a messages, calendar, and phone app. And you can have headlines read out to you from the news app to stay aware of things, maybe things that are developing as you're driving. For productivity, you can send text messages, of course, and have them read out to you. One thing I love to do is when I often drive to see my mother-in-law. She lives a few hours away, and I will share my ETA with her through Apple CarPlay via message. That way she knows when we're coming, like down to the minute, so she doesn't have to keep asking us when we're coming, and she knows kind of, when we'll be there, and it kind of puts her mind at ease. And the calendar function for productivity is really nice because if I, for example, say put into my calendar that I have a dentist appointment in Franklin at such and such address, when I get into my car to go to that dentist appointment, like 20 or so minutes beforehand, that address is going to pop up as being in my calendar in my Maps application. So I can just tap that and be ready to go. So I think that is very cool and saves you a lot of time of having to, look through your appointment reminders and see what the address is. And okay, now I'm gonna put that in and go, initiate navigation. It kind of takes a lot of steps out of that process for you. And the phone app, of course, you can send and receive phone calls as well as listen to voicemails, which is pretty nice as well. All right, that's about everything I have for you all today. Are there any questions?
Let's see. Gail would like to know, is there a cost for iHeartRadio, the app?
I just downloaded it. Let's see. I don't think so, but I haven't used it on this phone. I just want to be sure I give you the right answer since I have some time here. No cost to download iHeartRadio. I might recommend that one, especially if you like listening to the radio, which is its own special type of vibe. Streaming sometimes feels a little heartless. So that might be a good way to bridge the gap. Thank you for the question.
Awesome. And that looks like the last one, unless anybody wants to sneak in one more before we wrap up.
Cool beans. Is there one?
All right. Did you say that you felt Google Maps is more accurate?
I did say that, Gail. I just think, the hours of businesses tend to be a little bit more accurate on Google because business owners normally update them there, if nowhere else, because people know they Google your business before they go there. I feel like, and Google does this really nice thing when you use it for navigation of telling you if you're going to be able to make it before a location is closed. So you don't even have to really pay attention to the hours so much. As long as they're up to date in Google, Google will be like, I can take you here, but you might not make it before the library closes at 7, which is really nice and saves you a lot of time. Like before it even starts the navigation, it might be like you're not going to make it before they close. So might as well save yourself a trip, which is super helpful. I don't know. That's just my personal opinion that I think Google Maps is the most accurate. I use Apple Maps, so nothing against Apple Maps. I have used Waze. Yeah. All
It
right.
seems like, yeah, Gail says they've also heard that. So I kind of tend to agree with you as well, Lydia. And it is what I use.
Yeah. Yeah. And whenever I'm like planning trips or just checking out an area, maybe I know I'm going to be in a certain neighborhood. I want to see if there's any cool places to eat or how to walk from where I parked my car to the theater or whatever. I use Google Maps for that. So I still use Google Maps all of the time because, yeah, I just think it's the most accurate. Thank you so much for the question. I will say, if you have really specific questions about your car or an app you use that I haven't mentioned here, I would 100% recommend heading on over to YouTube and searching for your car's year, make, and model, and whichever service or app you're looking to use. And you'll probably be able to find some really detailed tutorials that'll help you a lot better than I could. I only have the cars I have. I've only got the phones I have. I wish I had more to be able to help you all a little bit better, but there's tons of tutorials on YouTube that are step by step that you'll be able to follow through with. And if you need any recommendations, reach out. Email's on the screen. Feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to send you some links. Well, that about does it for me. Next week, we do the much anticipated Twitter Tech Tuesdays that was postponed from last September. So I hope some of you will consider joining us for that. If you are in the Milwaukee area or not and interested in any of our awesome programming, we are getting back to doing some in-person programming in our branches this month. So I'd encourage you all to visit mpl.org/calendar to see what fun things we're up to. Again, I'd like to thank you all so much for joining us today for Tech Tuesdays, and have a good rest of your week.
Hi, everyone. See you next time.